Hi, preschool peeps. Welcome to the 4th of July Holiday Rewind. Did you hear that?
It's going back in time.
I know. This is us going back in time based on your votes. We thank you so much for going to our website and voting when we asked you to. People did. And we had 3 choices for what we were going to do for the Holiday Rewind. And by far, the episode that you have chosen to rewind is the one about putting away the flashcards. No more flashcards. We are very excited to provide that rewind, but that was done a long time ago, even before we were on YouTube. So if you are on YouTube right now, you will want to go to listen to this episode.
Listen only one.
Because yes, it's a listen only, but we are going to put this introduction on YouTube so that people know to go listen to episode number 77 from a long time ago. We're up to like recording 180 something. This is episode 77. And since that time, the National Association for the Education of Young Children, NAEYC, published a new position statement having to do with developmentally appropriate practice and a new book. I'm holding it up for the people on YouTube. A new book to match that statement. It's NAEYC's Developmentally Appropriate Practice in Early Childhood Programs, Serving Children from Birth through Age 8, 4th edition. So if you don't have the 4th edition, please go get it. In that 4th edition, on page 234, where it talks about examples of developmentally appropriate practices and examples of practices to avoid, it says under to avoid, relying on worksheets or drills to teach print concepts or letter knowledge, and flashcards are a drill. So guess what? NAEYC has said to avoid it. We're so pleased. It like right here in print. They also said to avoid drilling or chanting phonological awareness skills and giving little or no attention to promoting phonological awareness throughout the day. Their advice, what to do, it says educators draw attention to letters and their sounds and use many strategies to help children grasp the alphabetic principles and relate print to the spoken word, which we've talked about in this podcast. That's the taking dictation, such as identifying beginning sounds and letters in names, objects, and talking about features of environmental print. I feel
validated.
Yes. Yes. I feel completely validated. There's more information from the National Association on their website, naeyc.org. And in fact, there's an article about literacy and young children that says, I'm just going to pull it up real quick on my screen, maybe. It says, I'm ducking because I have to find the tab. It says, in fact, using flashcards is not effective. Flashcards emphasize memorization rather than communication and language skills that really foster early literacy. Memorizing is often mistaken for learning, but rote memorization is a lower level skill compared to skills developed through using complex language during meaningful conversations with children about feelings and ideas. Rote memorization may make sense for older children, but young children's brains are not ready for it. So there it is in an article to families on NAEYC's blog for families. I hope you enjoy this episode, peeps, and I'm thrilled that you voted for it.
Voting. Yeah.
Right? Allison all the time was
like,
votes.
I was big into the votes,
So buckle your seatbelts and here you go. Welcome to How Preschool Teachers Do It.
This is Allison Kentos. I am an early childhood educator.
And this is Cindy Tarabush. I am an early childhood consultant.
This podcast is for parents and early childhood professionals.
Let our experience and research-based knowledge become your guide.
Hey, preschool peeps.
Hello, happy Monday.
We are back on your podcast provider and YouTube today to talk about something that was inspired by something I read on Facebook, because isn't that where we all go for inspiration?
Where else do we have to go anymore?
Valid. So I was looking at Facebook, which is usually my first mistake. I try so hard not to scroll through too much, but
I know.
Something caught my eye. Something caught my eye, Allison, and it said this. It's not a quote, but it basically said this. The time teaching my child at home has been phenomenal. She has memorized 50 sight words, the entire alphabet, and we're so proud of all the sight words she now can do off flashcards. And I was like, oh.
No.
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 See, there's a reason why in early childhood settings we don't do that. So we, over the past, how long would you say, 5, 6, 7 years?
Sure.
Maybe a
That's
little
about
more.
right. Maybe longer. Maybe 10.
Maybe longer now.
Yeah.
Let me think. Yeah, it's longer. It's longer.
Longer.
I'm thinking back on my own history. It's longer.
Yeah.
Closer to like 7 to 10 years.
Yeah.
Have been doing methods of education in early childhood that are different than we were educated. We were educated with flashcards and we were educated to memorize everything.
Mm-hmm.
But we now know that memorization is not a higher level of learning. In fact, it's remembering is the lowest level of understanding. And so in our high quality curriculums and in classrooms that are part of things like quality rating systems, where they have to provide a high quality of education, they have thrown away the flashcards, they have gotten rid of the workbooks, and they do what we now know is our approaches that help children to learn at a much higher level, like project-based learning approaches, which we have talked about on this podcast in the past. You all can find those episodes. Approaches where children are looking at things in real use versus isolated on flashcards. I often tell people to remember that when children have memorized the ABC song, it's just a song. It doesn't mean they can read.
It's just a song.
It doesn't mean they can read.
It doesn't
lead to reading.
It doesn't mean that they know that those are letters that are used for words. They just think it's lyrics to a song.
Right.
Like Twinkle, Twinkle. Like it's...
For those people, Allison, who are on with us on YouTube, I'm going to share a screen. Allison loves when I share my screen.
I love this.
I know. It's Zoom magic.
It is.
I have bigger magic tricks than this on Zoom, but I'm going to share my screen. If you're listening to us on an auditory podcast provider, I'll describe it. Don't worry. Don't go anywhere. But for people who are on YouTube or who want to find us on YouTube and jump on, I'm going to show you something called Bloom's taxonomy that helps to guide what we know is very meaningful learning for young children. So, let me see. Okay, Allison, can you see it?
Yes.
Okay, cool. So, this is a chart of Bloom's taxonomy. And to give you all a little background, Bloom's taxonomy gives us the hierarchy from least, how do I put it? Least deep? Most shallow forms of learning to the most deep.
Most deep. The most...
From the bottom up, right? Yeah. So it's the most basic to the most complex. That's a hierarchy. So it's the most basic form of learning to the most complex application of knowledge. It's called, again, Bloom's taxonomy. Those of you who are just listening to us can look it up. And it teaches us what high quality learning includes. Just as a little background, looked this up. It was written in 1956, but then revised in 2001. And that revision made a big difference because the bottom most basic level of a child's understanding in the old version was knowledge. So that's why we were told to memorize everything, because people thought that shows knowledge. Make sense so far, Allison?
Yep.
Okay. Just like chime in if you feel like this is not. Okay. So they used to think just having knowledge, was that bottom step, and that was cool, so we memorized everything. And in the new version that we're now showing on YouTube, the bottom step in this ladder is remember versus knowledge. Because the truth is, when we were memorizing everything, we were just recalling, defining, duplicating, memorizing, and repeating basic things we were told. And we know that that's not deep understanding. So they revised this in 2001 to have remember be the bottom part of Bloom's taxonomy, the most basic form of knowledge. And Bloom's has, by the way, multiple charts like this. We're looking at the one about cognitive, about intellectual learning. And here's the order from bottom to top. So the lowest form of understanding is remembering. It's not as significant as when we know they understand and can explain the concept to us, that they can describe it, classify it, discuss it. And that's not as significant as when they can apply what they've learned in new situations by solving problems, doing experiments, demonstrating, and using it in operation. So first they memorize, then they need to show that they can understand it, then that they can apply it, then that they can analyze it, which means drawing connections between ideas and differentiating, comparing, contrasting similar things. And then we need is evaluation, which is being able to judge, select, weigh, critique, appraise, and make decisions based on what you've learned. And finally, the highest level of understanding is creating. So when we're educating children, just sitting with flashcards is not what I want to do, because it's a leap to go from remembering to understanding, applying, analyzing, evaluating, and creating. If we can teach children from higher on this sort of ladder, right? Ladder toward great understanding. If we can teach them higher on the ladder toward greater understanding with higher goals than memorize some flashcards, then they really have a deep understanding. Okay, so I'm going to take us out of this shared screen, Allison, so that we can discuss this in real life. What does this look like in real life? What it looks like in real life is, for things like words and letters, they need to see its function. Seeing it in isolation isn't meaningful. That's not meaningful understanding. They need to see it functioning. So in classrooms, folks, if you want your children to learn words, you need to be using them in sentences and have them see it in sentences. If you want them to be learning letters, they need to see it in familiar words. Yeah. Not in isolation.
Not in isolation.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So when we're working in classrooms, we tell teachers to do things like use environmental print, which are logos, street signs, store signs, things that children have in their environment all the time to point out letters and words. Or take dictation as children are talking. You write down what they're saying so that they can see their words in writing.
Yes.
What are some of the other things you do, Allison?
Well, I was just going to say, taking their dictation, I think, is a big deal, because then they connect, like, the words that I say also can be written down. Because I think for some children, they don't make that connection. Like, they don't, not right away, until you start connecting things.
Right. So one of the goals, one of the standards for early childhood for literacy is that children should learn that there's a connection between the spoken word and the written word.
Right. Right. And until you start dictating things and writing things down, and when you read a book, like pointing out the word while you're reading it, you know, they don't understand that these written words can be spoken and the spoken words can be written. You have to make that connection.
Right. Right. So
I think it's also with like with numbers. I know there are some schools that'll do like here's the number of the month, where they're learning like the number 10 in the month of whatever, June, and you're like, no, like that doesn't mean anything. You're isolating this one number and learning it all month long, when that doesn't teach them how to count. It doesn't teach them one-to-one correspondence. It doesn't teach them how to apply the numbers. Right. Just isolate. Like anytime you isolate any subject, any topic, any concept, I think you've lost the point.
Yeah. You know, I think people default to it because they think that's what early childhood should look like. Yeah. It's one of those we know better now. It really is. And if you're home worrying about your child going back to school potentially, in September, or going back to childcare sooner, and you're worried my child's going to be behind, you have to memorize a whole bunch of stuff. Like, please understand that all the children are in the same place. It's not like your child was the only one.
Just yours. Yeah, we all
missed
went through this.
The educational opportunity, right? Everybody missed.
We all did it. Yeah.
Everybody's always at different levels. Teachers expect that. I do not expect children to all return at the same level. And that's the work of teachers, is to find out where each child is today and help them move along their educational path, their educational journey, and their quest for knowledge.
Yeah.
I think that there's I know from the teachers I talk to, tremendous understanding that skills may have slipped. And for some will come back with increased skills in some areas, but not others, depending on their experience at home.
At home, yeah.
But I think it's really important, if families are worrying, they tend to default to what they know from our childhoods. What we knew from our childhoods was flashcards. Folks, we don't use them in preschools anymore. If your preschool is worth its weight at all. Yeah. Yeah. It is not developmentally appropriate practice. It's in every quality rating system that they do not want to see workbooks, flashcards. And the like. Yeah. It's written in black and white that way in the standards for high quality settings. It's just that a lot of people don't know or understand why we teach differently now.
Well, I think a lot of parents, they were all taught like we were taught, back then. And they think that it's great when their child has memorized things because they could just spit back all these facts and it sounds.
It's impressive.
It's impressive. It's like a
parlor trick.
Yeah, it's like a parlor trick. And you're like, oh, look how much my kid knows. Look how much she knows. Like, this is great. Like, she's just like spitting back out the facts. A month from now, she's not going to remember any of that. I mean,
even if they do, here's my question. When children come and they're like, look how many words my child has memorized. How is your child applying it? Is your child using it to write? Is your child using it when reading? Is your child using it to unfreeze Allison, who just froze? My question is always, is your child using it? Yeah. It's kind of like that alphabet song. It's nice that they've memorized a song. Is your child able to use the letters out of order? Yeah. Numbers, same. It's nice that they can count by rote from 1 to 30. Is your child using numbers to create sets? Yeah. To do more and less than? Yeah. To count real life things? Right. So the title, Allison, the title you and I agreed on for this episode was Put Down the Flashcards.
Put them down.
Ask you to do.
Put them down.
Put them down.
Put them down. And start
back in their box.
Yeah. Yeah.
Back in their cute little box.
And you know what? You could just get rid of those flashcards because you're not going to need them because you're going to start doing real life things and learning numbers and letters through that. Okay.
Right.
Learning it through play, doing things that apply the knowledge rather than just memorizing the cards.
Always be thinking application.
Application, yeah.
If you're reading a book with your child and you want to say, this is the word the, it's the letters T-H-E. And you read the book and every time you come to the, you point at it and they say the. Right. That's way better than flashcards because you're reading together.
And start talking about how each letter makes a different sound and these sounds put together make the word the, and things like that.
That's complicated because of the TH. Let's do a different example.
Cat. You're reading a book about cats. Okay.
There you go.
There you go.
Take the word cat.
Choose easy words. Choose easy words.
Sorry, that was me. I chose that.
Yeah.
So you're reading a book and the word I is there, like in I am Sam, right? Or Sam, I am.
I am, yeah.
I am. And you show them I am. And every time you read it, they do the I am. There's no reason. Then what you have to do is take a different book that has those two words in it and see if they recognize them in a different book or have they memorized the book you were doing.
The book. Because a lot of kids will memorize books that they've read a lot, and the parents are like, oh, look, she's reading. No, they're not reading. They're looking at the page of the book and they're like, I know what words go with that page. because we've read this book 3,000 times. They're not actually reading it, but I mean, most parents, it's like this cute little trick. Hey, look, look what my kids do. It's cute. I mean, it's all, and that is one of the steps to learning how to read. Right. But they're not actually reading. I mean, so see if you can go to another book and say, hey, here's the word cat. We were reading Pete the Cat the other day, and boom, there's the word cat. And now you have another book that has a cat. The cat.
I love Pete the Cat. I love Pete the Cat. Great books, folks, if you don't have them. Pete the Cat. So I also, I think that you have to open up other books and say, here's the word we were looking at the other day in our other book. Do you recognize this word? And if the child doesn't, it means no. It was.
They just memorize.
They can't apply it. They can't apply it across multiple situations yet, which is okay.
Okay, they're just not at that stage
but that's the goal, right? Use it in real use so that they can apply it across multiple activities.
Yeah.
And eventually they can use it to create, and that's how we end up with writers.
Yes.
And that's how we end up with, what's the equivalent in math? Mathematicians?
Yeah, I guess. Or scientists.
Scientists. There you go. That's how we end up with scientists, because they can apply the math and the knowledge that they've learned in new and creative ways, because that's the ultimate goal. Apply it in a new and creative way. It's why project-based learning is so great. Yes. We're always teaching them to apply what they have learned in new and great ways based on really simple topics that they can relate to.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
That's what we want them to do, to create ultimately. So if you were to sit and write books with your children where they talk and you take dictation if they're not able to write yet, if you sit with them and create board games using numbers to count how many spaces you move, and you're going to mark the thing, create board games together, write books together.
Do some science together.
Go do some science, and especially with the weather so beautifully.
Oh, I know. Do some science together and record the results of your experiment. Make an observational book. Hey, we're going to go outside today and we're going to observe bugs. There you go. That's easy. I mean, we're going to observe the sun and how this shadow looks different. Let's make a observation book about that. Do a sink or float experiment. We're going to record which ones sink and which ones don't. There's so many different ways you can apply all of these things.
I think what you're saying, Allison, is like this. Active learning is the best type of learning.
Yes. Like, so if you want to teach your child about how things sink and how things float, let's just say, you could sit there with a flashcard and be like, look at this. This is an anchor, it sinks. This is this, and this sinks. Now, if you actually take an anchor and sink it and float it, now they understand what sink and float means. They're not just memorizing what sinks and what floats. They actually understand the concept of, like, this is what it means to sink and this is what it means to float.
And you know what happens when you do it often enough? You memorize it. But you memorize it in the context of use. Right? Yes. Use. So let's say we'll go back to the book, just example, right? Yeah. We're reading a book with our child. We're saying, these are the words I am, in a book that repeats it over. I am, I am. Yeah. Once they can find it, like, in a different book, I am. I'm going to sit and I'm going to create with them. Let's write a book. What are you? I am happy. Yeah. I am going to play ball. I am. Now I'm using it to create. And the ultimate goal is use it to create.
Yeah.
Right? So put down the flashcards.
Yeah.
Do more enriching things. Things that we now know are more enriching, please.
Yeah. It's also not a very fun way to learn, flashcards.
No.
It's not. When you could be out and about as a kid and, like, learning things in a very, like, application kind of way, which is, like, so much fun, like learning through play and still getting the same
They'll memorize it that way.
They'll memorize it that way.
I mean, think about it. With the I am, even, I've seen it in a book. I can see it in another book. I've created with it. Now I know it.
Yeah, now I know it.
You will memorize it as you go through all those steps. Yeah. Memorization doesn't have to be the first step.
No.
Application and use in real life should be the first step.
Yeah, and then from that, they will memorize.
They will memorize.
Yeah, but yeah.
If they encounter it enough, they will memorize it.
Yeah. And then they'll remember it for a very long time. Because when we were kids, we were taught to memorize everything, to spit it back on a test and get a good grade. But do you remember any of that stuff? No.
You know what I have? I have like these snippets of memories.
Yes.
These snippets. So I think about like the periodic table of elements, right? I was on a call the other day. I know maybe 4 of them. So I was on a call the other day with other faculty from the college that I do some work for. And they asked us if we remember what AU stands for, and I knew it. I knew it was gold. I don't know how I knew it.
Okay, do you know why? Because you used to play tricks. Like, I know AU is gold because I had a teacher in high school say, the way you can remember, there's like, AU, get your hands off my gold. A memorization.
I never learned that. How did I know it?
Oh, I don't know.
It's one of my snippets of knowledge. Gold is AU. But you ask me anything other than O, H, or AU?
Yeah, I think like
I pretty much got nothing.
And I do remember that K, I believe, is potassium because it's just so wacky that they would choose K for potassium, I think. Now, any science person out there, just tell me if I'm wrong. But I'm pretty sure.
Science people, we're sorry we're offending you by not knowing this.
Sorry, because I'm really into science.
It's one of those things we have to memorize. You retain little snippets, but you don't retain the whole thing.
Same thing with like a lot of history things. You'll remember like little snippets of facts about like history, but you won't remember like the entire thing. And it's because maybe that one little snippet interested you for some reason. Maybe just stuck in your head for whenever.
Gold must interest me.
Right. So, or you, so you were just like, who wouldn't? Like, So I mean, like, it's just, and the brain is a wacky thing. It remembers certain things and it pushes other stuff out. So.
Goodness knows.
Who knows why Cindy remembers AU? Who knows?
Oh no, but I won the prize.
But also something else got pushed out of your brain that might be really important instead.
Probably that I need milk.
Yes.
So we're on this call, all higher education professionals. They put the question out, if you remember what AU stands for. I wait a second, thinking one of the science professors will do it.
No, they don't know.
Nobody jumped in, right? Nobody jumped in. I typed in gold, and they were like, yes, Cindy, it stands for gold. And then I typed in, thank you very much. Then I typed in, I don't know why I remember that.
You just remember stuff.
I don't know. But your children need to apply these very foundational lessons about words and letters and numbers and colors and shapes. They have to be able to apply it or it's meaningless. Yeah. So, to wrap up this episode, Allison and I know you're very concerned about the level of your children's learning right now. By September rolls around, they'll be home, 6 months?
Yeah.
And who knows how many of them are returning to a classroom. The simple math tells me they won't all be returning full time like they were, so everyone's got these concerns. Yeah. I totally get the concern.
Oh, I get it.
Completely get it. And I also would be seeking to work with my children to ensure that they're still learning and that their brains are still active. So do it in an active way and put down
the flashcards.
Thank you very much.
Drop them.
Thank you. We hope you share this episode with everyone who may be using flashcards. And I'm going to sign us off because it looks like Allison froze again. So please share the episode, especially with people who are trying to catch kids up at home. Give us 5 stars wherever you're watching. Remember, you can catch us now on your podcast provider and YouTube, and we will catch you next time on the podcast when Allison won't be frozen. See you next time.